My father died wearing the same $10 jacket he'd owned for 20 years. Everyone at his funeral whispered the same thing. Poor old man. My brother laughed before the coffin was even lowered into the ground. At least we won't have to keep paying his bills anymore. My sister rolled her eyes. I just hope he didn't leave us any debt. Nobody cried. Nobody thanked him. Nobody knew. The man they were calling poor secretly owned over $2 billion. And my father had spent the last 7 years pretending to be broke, just to discover who deserved everything. My father died on a rainy Thursday morning. The hospital called at exactly 6:17 a.m. by 7 o'clock. My older brother was already asking one question. Did he leave a will? Not. How did he die? Not. Was he in pain? Just. Did he leave a will? I wish I could tell you that shocked me. It didn't. Because greed had lived inside my family for years. Dad always looked poor. He drove a 20-year-old pickup truck that rattled every time he started it. He wore faded jeans, scuffed work boots, and the same brown jacket every winter. He clipped grocery coupons, fixed broken furniture himself, and refused to spend money even on himself. Everyone thought he was broke, including me. I grew up believing we barely survived each month. My brother, Jason, hated him for it. Other dads buy their kids new cars, he'd complain. Mine buys used tires. My sister, Vanessa, wasn't much different. She stopped inviting Dad to school events because he dresses like a homeless man. Dad never argued. He'd simply smile and say something strange. One day, you'll understand why. None of us ever asked what he meant, at least. Not until he died. The funeral wasn't emotional, it was awkward. People whispered. Neighbors shook their heads. One woman even said, "Poor Robert. He worked his whole life and still had nothing." Jason overheard her. He laughed. That's because he never knew how to make money. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Honestly, if he'd invested instead of saving every penny, maybe we'd actually inherit something. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stared at Dad's coffin. The wood was simple, cheap, exactly what he would have chosen. People thought it reflected his poverty. I knew better. Dad never cared about appearances. He cared about something else, something I never fully understood. After the service, everyone gathered in the church basement. Coffee, cookies, fake sympathy, real greed. Jason leaned toward me. So, how much debt do you think he left? I don't know, Vanessa sighed dramatically. I swear, if he leaves us unpaid bills, I'm refusing to pay a single cent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad wasn't even buried yet, and they were already arguing over money they assumed didn't exist. An hour later, a black luxury sedan pulled into the church parking lot. Everyone stopped talking. A tall man stepped out, tailored suit, silver hair, expensive watch. He looked completely out of place. He walked directly toward us. "Excuse me, my name is Daniel Brooks. I'm Robert Carter's attorney." Attorney, Jason frowned. "My dad had a lawyer," Daniel nodded, "for over 25 years. The room fell silent. Jason laughed. What exactly did he need a lawyer for? Coupon fraud? Nobody else laughed. Daniel calmly opened a leather briefcase. "I've been instructed to gather the entire family. There are instructions your father wanted delivered. Immediately after the funeral," Vanessa whispered. "Maybe he actually left us something." Jason grinned. "I told you. He probably had a few $1,000s hidden somewhere." I noticed something strange. Daniel wasn't smiling. He looked sad, almost guilty, as if he already knew what would happen next. 30 minutes later, we arrived at Dad's old house. Daniel didn't sit down. Instead, he placed a sealed envelope on the kitchen table. Across the front, Dad had written, "Do not open until every family member is present." Jason couldn't wait. He ripped it open. Inside wasn't a will, it was a single handwritten letter. Daniel cleared his throat. "Your father asked me to read this aloud." Everyone leaned forward. Daniel unfolded the page. "If you're hearing this, it means I've already died." Vanessa started crying, real tears this time. Dad continued, "My children, I know every one of you believes I died a poor man. Jason smirked. Well, didn't you? Daniel ignored him. He kept reading. You're wrong. The room froze. For the past 7 years, I've been pretending to be poor. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Jason laughed nervously. This has to be a joke. Daniel looked him directly in the eyes. It isn't, he continued. Everything you believed about my life was a lie. Vanessa slowly sat down. What is happening? Dad's letter continued. I wanted to know whether my children loved me or only loved what I could give them. Jason slammed his fist onto the table. This is ridiculous. Just tell us how much money there is. Daniel quietly reached into his briefcase, then placed a thick folder on the table. I think you should see this. Inside were photographs, private jets, luxury hotels, corporate boardrooms, Dad wearing tailored suits, standing beside governors, business leaders, world-famous CEOs. I blinked. No, that wasn't possible. The man in those photographs looked exactly like my father, except confident, powerful, rich, very rich. Jason whispered, Who is that? Daniel answered without hesitation, Your father. The room exploded with questions. Vanessa grabbed the folder. No, these have to be fake. Daniel calmly removed one final document, then placed it on the table. Across the top, in bold black letters, were the words, Carter Global Holdings estimated net worth, $2,184,000,000 over. $2 billion. My legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed into Dad's old kitchen chair. Every memory I had, every struggle, every sacrifice, every second I thought we were poor, had all been part of something much bigger. Jason slowly looked up. His hands were shaking. So, where's the money? Daniel took a deep breath, then smiled for the very first time. I'm afraid. None of you own a single dollar. Silence. Jason stood up so fast his chair crashed onto the floor. What? Daniel adjusted his tie. Because your father's inheritance isn't something you receive. He looked at each of us, one by one. It's something you have to earn. Nobody spoke. The number on that paper kept replaying inside my head. $2.1 billion. Jason finally broke the silence. So, where's the money? Daniel closed the folder. Exactly where Mr. Carter wanted it. Vanessa folded her arms. And where is that? I'm not authorized to tell you. Jason slammed both hands on the table. This is insane. You just told us our father was a billionaire. Now you're saying we can't have any of it. Daniel remained calm. I didn't say you can't. I said, you haven't earned it. The room fell silent again. Daniel reached into his briefcase. This time, he removed 4 identical black envelopes. Each one had a single name written in gold ink. Jason, Vanessa, Emma, and Margaret, our mother. Mom looked confused. I thought this was only for the children. Daniel smiled politely. Your husband specifically requested that every immediate family member participate. Jason grabbed his envelope before Daniel finished speaking. He tore it open. Inside, there was only one card. It read, Rule number 1 for the next 30 days, you are forbidden from telling anyone that Robert Carter was wealthy. If you break this rule, you are permanently disqualified. Jason laughed. That's it. Vanessa opened hers. Same card. Mom opened hers. Same thing. I slowly unfolded mine. The words were identical, except for one handwritten sentence at the bottom. Emma, trust your instincts. Not everyone taking this test is playing by the rules. I looked up. Daniel had already looked away. Did he know about that extra sentence? Or had Dad written it just for me? Jason crumpled his card. This is stupid. I can stay quiet for 30 days. Daniel smiled. I hope you do. Jason frowned. What does that mean? Daniel calmly placed another document on the table. This house has cameras. Everyone looked around. What? Cameras? Daniel nodded. Every room, every hallway, the garage, the backyard. For the last 7 years. Vanessa nearly dropped her envelope. You spied on us? Daniel shook his head. Your father observed. Jason laughed nervously. No, that's illegal. Not when it's your own property. Silence. Then Daniel added something that made my skin crawl. Your father watched every family dinner, every birthday, every argument, every lie. I remembered something. 3 years earlier, Jason told Dad he couldn't afford to visit because work was busy. That same night, I saw photos of him on social media, vacationing in Hawaii. Dad never confronted him. He simply smiled the next time they met. Was that because he already knew? Daniel interrupted my thoughts. Mr. Carter believed people reveal their true character when they think nobody is watching. The meeting ended. Jason couldn't stop smiling as soon as we stepped outside. He whispered, $2 billion. Vanessa grabbed his arm. We should celebrate. I looked at them. Did you two not hear the first rule? Jason rolled his eyes. Relax. We're family. That doesn't count. Something about the way he said it felt wrong. That evening, I drove back to my apartment. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, old furniture, leaky kitchen faucet. Dad had offered to help me buy a house years ago. I refused because I thought he couldn't afford it. Now, I couldn't stop wondering, how many sacrifices had he pretended to make just to protect his secret? I opened my refrigerator, almost empty. Then I noticed something. A small white envelope tucked beneath the fruit bowl. My name was written on it, in Dad's handwriting. Impossible. I picked it up carefully. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It showed me standing outside a homeless shelter 3 winters ago, the day I'd secretly volunteered there. I'd never told anyone, not even Dad. On the back, he'd written, "Kindness done in secret is worth more than generosity done for applause." Tears filled my eyes. He knew. He'd known all along. But how across town? Jason wasn't following rule number 1, not even for 12 hours. He invited 3 friends to an expensive steakhouse. I didn't know it then, but hidden cameras inside the restaurant captured everything. Jason raised his glass. You idiots won't believe this. My old man wasn't broke. He was worth over $2 billion. His friends stared. No way, Jason laughed. Oh, it's true. And in a month, I'm buying a yacht. He never noticed. A woman sitting alone in the corner. She quietly smiled, finished her coffee, and walked out. The next morning, that same woman handed Daniel Brooks a flash drive. Meanwhile, I received another phone call. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Emma, the voice was soft, an elderly woman. I worked for your father. I don't have much time. He told me, if you ever learn the truth, I should give you something. What is it? A key. A very old key. It opens the only place your brother and sister don't know exists. Before I could ask another question, she whispered one final sentence. Your father never tested who loved his money. He tested who deserved the truth. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. A key? What key? What hidden place? And why had Dad chosen me? As I looked down, I noticed something I had completely forgotten. Attached to the back of the Polaroid photo was a tiny brass key, the same shape as an old safety deposit key. My heart started racing. Somewhere, my father had left one final secret, and I was beginning to realize the inheritance wasn't money, it was a puzzle. I couldn't stop staring at the tiny brass key. It looked old, older than anything my father ever owned. There were no numbers, no logo, just one tiny letter engraved near the handle. I turned it over several times. Nothing else. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again, I answered immediately. Emma! It was Daniel. Don't tell me where you are. My heart skipped. Why? Because someone is listening. I looked around my apartment. The room suddenly felt much smaller. What do you mean? I mean your father expected this. He told me there would come a day when you wouldn't know who to trust. My voice dropped. Daniel, what's happening? He paused, then quietly said, Did you receive the key? I froze. You knew. I've known about it for years. What does it open? I'm sorry. I can't tell you. Your father made me promise. Then at least tell me where to go. Another pause. Do you remember the old train station where your father used to take you when you were little? I smiled without realizing it. Every Saturday, Dad and I would buy hot chocolate, sit on the same wooden bench, and watch freight trains pass for hours. Mom always said it was boring. Jason hated going. Vanessa refused after the first trip, but I loved it. Dad always called it our quiet place. Daniel whispered, "Go there." Then he hung up. The station looked abandoned. Most people didn't even know it still existed. Rust covered the tracks. Broken windows reflected the gray afternoon sky. Everything looked forgotten, except bench number 7. It was exactly where Dad and I used to sit. Same faded green paint. Same tiny crack on the left armrest. I smiled, then noticed something strange. Someone had carved a tiny R beneath the seat. The same letter that appeared on the key. My heartbeat quickened. I knelt beside the bench, running my fingers underneath, until I found a tiny metal lock hidden beneath the wooden seat. The key fit perfectly. Click. A hidden compartment slowly opened. Inside was another envelope, along with a small USB drive. No money, no jewelry, just those 2 things across the envelope. Dad had written, "Only if you're still honest." My hands trembled. I opened it. Inside was another letter. "Emma, if you found this, then you ignored the easier path. Good." A tear rolled down my cheek. Dad continued, "Your brother and sister are chasing money. I'm hoping you're chasing answers." I smiled through tears. That sounded exactly like him. Then the next sentence changed everything. "You are not the only person taking this test." I frowned. Not the only person? What did that mean? Dad answered, "For the last 7 years, I've secretly tested every employee in my company, every executive, every business partner, and every member of this family." My eyes widened. This wasn't just about us. This was something much bigger. Much, much bigger. I picked up the USB drive. There was a small sticker attached. "Watch alone." I drove home, locked every door, closed every curtain, then inserted the USB into my laptop. A video appeared. Dad, wearing the same old brown jacket, smiling, exactly the way I remembered him. "Hi, Peanut." He hadn't called me that since I was 12. "If you're watching this, then congratulations. You've already done something your brother never could. You followed directions." I laughed through tears. Dad chuckled. "I know Jason. If I told him not to push a button, he'd push it twice." He leaned closer to the camera. "Emma, everything you've seen so far is only the first test." My smile disappeared. "First test? There are 12. 12, my stomach dropped. Dad nodded. "If someone reaches the end, they won't just inherit my fortune. They'll inherit my life's work." Life's work. The money is only a small part. Small, $2 billion was a small part, Dad continued. The real inheritance is control. Control of Carter Global Holdings. Images flashed across the screen. Office towers, factories, shipping ports, airplanes carrying the Carter logo. Hotels, technology companies, hospitals, hundreds of businesses. My father hadn't just been rich, he had built an empire. Then Dad became serious. If the wrong person controls it, thousands of innocent employees lose everything. I felt sick. This was never about making us wealthy. It was about protecting everyone whose lives depended on his company. Suddenly, the video paused by itself. A message appeared. Video interrupted. External access detected. "What?" The screen went black. Then lines of code appeared. Someone was remotely connected to my laptop. Files started disappearing one by one. No, I yanked the USB out. Too late. Half the files were already gone. Someone had hacked into the drive. Then my apartment lights went out. Darkness. Complete silence. A knock echoed through the room. 3 slow knocks. My heart pounded. Nobody knew I was here. Then a familiar voice came from outside. "Emma." It was Jason. "I know you're inside." He laughed softly. "I think it's time. You gave me Dad's key." Jason knocked again, this time harder. "Emma, I know you're in there." I stayed completely silent. My apartment was dark except for the faint light coming from the street outside. Another knock, then another. Finally, Jason spoke again. "You have 10 seconds. If you don't open this door, I'll do it myself." I looked around the room. There was only one exit besides the front door, the fire escape. Quietly, I grabbed the brass key, Dad's letter, and the USB drive, stuffing them into my backpack. The apartment door shook violently. Jason wasn't alone. I heard another man's voice. "Break it!" The first kick hit the door. The wood cracked. A second kick. The lock began to split. I climbed onto the fire escape just as the door burst open behind me. Cold night air hit my face. I climbed down as fast as I could without looking back. Halfway down, I heard Jason shouting, "She's escaping!" Footsteps rushed toward the window. I jumped the last few feet onto the alley below and started running. My lungs burned. Behind me, I heard people chasing me. I turned the corner and almost collided with a black SUV. The driver's window rolled down. Daniel Brooks looked at me. "Get in!" I didn't hesitate. The SUV sped away just as Jason reached the street. He pounded his fist against another parked car in frustration. Daniel kept driving for several minutes before speaking. "They're becoming desperate." "How did Jason know about the key?" Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Because someone inside my office is feeding your family information. There are more people involved than I thought." I stared out the window. "I don't know who to trust anymore." Daniel nodded. "That's exactly what your father expected." He reached into the center console and handed me a sealed envelope. "He wanted you to have this only if someone tried to steal the key." My father's handwriting covered the front, for Emma. After the first betrayal. I opened it immediately. Inside was a single page. "Emma, if you're reading this, then someone close to you has already revealed their true character. Don't waste your energy asking why. Greed always believes it deserves more." I continued reading. "Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, go to Carter Tower." My eyebrows lifted. Carter Tower? I'd never heard of it. Daniel glanced at me. "You've driven past it hundreds of times." "What? You just didn't know it belonged to your father." My heart skipped. "The glass skyscraper downtown," he nodded. "The headquarters of Carter Global Holdings." I couldn't believe it. That building was one of the tallest in the city. My father owned it. "I thought it belonged to investors." Daniel smiled faintly. "Your father let the world believe many things." The letter continued. "When you arrive, don't tell anyone your name. Walk to the reception desk. Say only one sentence. The lighthouse still shines." I frowned. "What does that mean?" Daniel shook his head. "I honestly don't know." Dad had never explained everything to him either. The next morning, I stood across the street from Carter Tower. The building reflected the morning sun like a giant mirror. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Employees in expensive suits walked through revolving glass doors. I looked down at my simple jeans and sneakers. I felt completely out of place. Taking a deep breath, I walked inside. The marble lobby looked more like a 5-star hotel than an office. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning. How may I help you?" I remembered Dad's instructions. "The lighthouse still shines." Her smile disappeared instantly. Without saying another word, she picked up the phone. "She's here." Less than a minute later, 2 security officers appeared. For a second, I thought I had made a terrible mistake. Instead, they escorted me to a private elevator. One of them pressed a button that had no number. The elevator began moving. Up, higher than the executive floors. Finally, the doors opened. Only one office occupied the entire floor. The name on the glass wall read, "Robert Carter, my father's office." No one had touched it. His coffee mug still sat on the desk. His reading glasses rested beside an open notebook. It felt as though he had simply stepped out for lunch. An elderly woman entered the room. She smiled warmly. "You must be Emma. I'm Helen. I was your father's executive assistant for 28 years. You knew me when I was little." She laughed softly. "I used to keep chocolate in my desk just for you." A faint memory returned. A kind woman giving me candy while Dad attended meetings. I had completely forgotten. Helen opened a drawer and removed a thick leather binder. Your father asked me to give you this if you were the first family member to reach this office. The first, she nodded. Your brother came yesterday. My stomach tightened. He demanded access to the company. What happened? He failed. How? Helen slid a security tablet toward me. Watch. The video showed Jason storming into the lobby. He shouted at employees, threatened security guards, claimed he was the rightful owner. Finally, he tried forcing open a restricted office. Helen paused the video. Your father believed power reveals character faster than money. She handed me another document. Jason is permanently disqualified. I looked at the paper in disbelief. One name was crossed out with a bold red line. Only 3 names remained. Vanessa, Mom, Emma. Before I could ask another question, Helen's expression changed. She looked toward the window overlooking the city. That's strange. What is? There shouldn't be helicopters today. I walked beside her. 3 black helicopters were circling the building. At the same moment, alarms began echoing throughout the entire tower. Employees started running through the hallways. Helen's phone rang. She answered. The color drained from her face. She slowly lowered the phone. They've done it. Who's they? Your mother and Vanessa. They've convinced the board that you're trying to steal the company. Before I could respond, every screen inside the office suddenly switched on. A live news broadcast filled the room. The anchor looked directly into the camera. We're receiving breaking news this morning. Carter Global Holdings is facing an emergency leadership crisis after the late billionaire Robert Carter's eldest daughter filed legal documents claiming her younger sister forged confidential inheritance records. My heart sank. I hadn't forged anything, but someone had just declared war. The newsroom exploded with questions. Cameras surrounded the entrance to Carter Tower. Employees whispered as they stared at me. Every television screen repeated the same headline. Possible inheritance fraud inside Carter Global Holdings. I stood frozen. Helen gently touched my shoulder. Your father warned me this day might come. He knew they'd try to destroy your reputation before they could steal the company. I looked at her. How do I stop this? She smiled. You don't. You let your father do it. She walked toward the far wall. At first, it looked like ordinary wood paneling. Then she pressed her thumb against a hidden scanner. A section of the wall slowly slid open. Behind it was a private conference room. In the center, a single chair faced a massive screen. Helen handed me a small remote. He recorded this 2 weeks before he died. He said only one person would ever see it. I sat down. The lights dimmed. The screen came alive. My father appeared, not in his old jacket, not pretending to be poor. He was wearing a navy suit, confident, calm, exactly like the man from the photographs. He smiled. Hello, Peanut. If you're watching this, then you reached the final test. I couldn't stop crying. I wish I could hug you one last time. But life doesn't always give us another chance. He leaned forward. The money was never the inheritance. The company was never the inheritance. The real inheritance was responsibility. Images filled the screen. Factories, hospitals, scholarships, food banks, employees celebrating retirements, families smiling. For 40 years, this company fed more than 50,000 families. I wasn't building wealth. I was protecting people. He paused. If a greedy person controlled Carter Global, those families would become numbers on a spreadsheet. That's why I created the tests. Another video appeared beside him. Hidden security footage. Jason secretly selling company information to a competitor. Vanessa forging my signature. My mother accepting money from board members in exchange for supporting a takeover. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Dad looked back into the camera. They all failed long before I died. I simply gave them one final opportunity to prove me wrong. They never did. The office door suddenly burst open. Jason, Vanessa, Mom, 3 lawyers. 2 board members. Jason pointed at me. There she is. She's hiding company property. Helen calmly folded her hands. You're interrupting a private meeting. Jason laughed. Not anymore. The board has already voted. I'm taking control. Before anyone could answer, every television inside the building switched channels automatically. Every conference room, every office, every lobby. The same video of Dad appeared live across the entire company. Thousands of employees stopped working. Everyone watched. Dad smiled into the camera. If you're seeing this, then someone ignored my final instructions. Jason's face lost all color. Dad continued. My children believe ownership comes from blood. They're wrong. It comes from character. He looked directly into the camera. To the board of directors. If Jason, Vanessa, or Margaret attempt to remove Emma Carter, this recording serves as immediate authorization to dissolve the current board. The board members looked at each other in shock. What? Dad continued. My attorneys have already signed replacement documents. The new board takes effect. The moment this video begins, the conference room doors opened. 6 new directors entered. Federal auditors followed behind them. Daniel Brooks walked in carrying a thick binder. It's over. One auditor addressed Jason. Mr. Carter, you're under investigation for corporate fraud, insider trading, and attempted unlawful control of company assets. Jason stepped backward. This is impossible. Daniel calmly placed several bank statements on the table. You accepted payments from one of Carter Global's competitors. Vanessa tried to leave. Another investigator stopped her. And you falsified legal documents, she whispered. I can explain. So can the evidence. My mother began crying. I only wanted security. Dad's voice still echoed through the room. Fear makes people protect money. Love makes people protect each other. Choose carefully. The room became silent. The final page of Dad's legal file was placed in front of me. At the bottom was a single sentence. Chairwoman and sole controlling trustee, Emma Carter. Helen smiled through tears. Congratulations. Your father chose well. Weeks later, life finally became quiet. I moved into a modest house overlooking a lake, not a mansion. Not a penthouse, just somewhere peaceful. People kept asking why I didn't spend billions on luxury. I always gave the same answer. Because my father spent his life pretending money didn't matter. I'd rather spend mine proving he was right. The first decision I made as chairwoman wasn't buying a new office. It wasn't buying a private jet. It was increasing employee scholarships, expanding healthcare benefits, and creating a relief fund for workers facing financial hardship. The same people who once believed Robert Carter was a poor old man finally learned the truth. He had never been pretending to be poor because he was ashamed of wealth. He pretended to be poor because he wanted to know who would still love him when they believed he had nothing left to give. And in the end, the greatest fortune my father ever left me wasn't $2 billion. It was the wisdom to know exactly what they were worth.